Look at these satellite images of the Moscow oil refinery damaged after a powerful drone attack. The images show a storage tank whose lid was blown off after the explosion. Russia woke up to see the war reaching the heart of its own infrastructure again. This exposes a turning point that the Kremlin tries to hide with threats, tough talk, and propaganda. Putin no longer controls the pace of the crisis as he once did. Ukraine has started hitting refineries, logistics centers, and power points inside Russian territory, while Moscow rushes to say that everything is under control, even when smoke appears in the sky and the damage becomes international news. The attack on the Moscow refinery, combined with the strike on the Tyumen refinery in Siberia, shows that Kyiv is taking the pressure far from the front line. At the same time, Zelensky faces diplomatic tension with Poland, Merz is holding back Ukraine's full entry into the European Union, and Iran is once again stirring up the Strait of Hormuz, creating more instability on the global stage. Putin wanted a war controlled by Moscow. Now he sees refineries burning, allies irritated, adversaries advancing, and parallel crises tightening around the whole world. What can Putin still manage to hide? Why has the Russian rear become a target? How is Moscow going to sustain this war now? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing, because here there's a video like this every day. Kyiv is trying to reduce Moscow's ability to finance, supply, and prolong the war. Putin bet on wearing Ukraine down, but now he sees Ukraine using technology, intelligence, and reach to strike sensitive points inside Russian territory. Moscow's response came in the old Kremlin style. Medvedev appeared at the center of the news with a statement, attributed to him in an aggressive tone, saying that there would be no more rules regarding the government in Kyiv, except for the deliberate destruction of civilians. This statement shows the verbal desperation of someone who tries to appear strong when their own rearguard starts to fail. When the regime needs to shout that there are no rules, it's because it has already lost part of the narrative. The attack in Tyumen further amplifies this impact. The refinery is located in Siberia, almost 2,000 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. Local authorities said that debris fell in the area of the facility and tried to claim that there was no significant damage, but the mere fact that drones have reached so far already changes the perception of the war. Russia is not just dealing with attacks near the border, it is dealing with a Ukraine capable of striking deep inside Russian territory. This reach bothers Putin because it breaks a central promise made to the Russian people, the idea that Moscow could wage war abroad, pressure Ukraine, threaten Europe, and still keep daily life at home protected. The refineries that were attacked show a different reality. The cost of the war comes back into Russia, smoke rises from Russian facilities, and insecurity reaches Russian workers. The Kremlin elite realizes that a long war also takes a toll on those who started the fire. Zelensky also faces a serious problem in the diplomatic field. The president of Poland, Karol Nawrocki, withdrew the Order of the White Eagle, the highest Polish decoration, from Zelensky. The decision came after Ukraine chose to name a military unit in honor of the so-called heroes of the UPA, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army. In Poland, this group evokes bitter memories, being linked to accusations of ethnic cleansing against Poles and war crimes. Nawrocki tried to separate the symbolic punishment against Zelensky from Polish support for Ukraine. He stated that the decision was not against the Ukrainian people and that it did not change the strategic direction of Poland's security. Even so, the gesture opened a political wound at a delicate moment. Ukraine needs military, financial, and diplomatic support. Poland remains central to that support. But Warsaw made it clear that support against Putin does not mean a blank check regarding historical memory. This tension is of direct interest to Moscow. Putin has always tried to exploit divisions between Ukraine and its European partners. The withdrawal of the award provided ammunition for Russian propaganda, which claimed that Kyiv was losing support. But the situation is more complex. Poland criticized Zelensky, but did not break with Ukraine. The message was harsh, but it did not mean abandonment. That's where Putin hits a limit. Friedrich Merz put the brakes on Ukrainian optimism again by saying that a nation at war cannot become a full member of the European Union right now. The proposal he supports involves a kind of association before full membership. For Kyiv, this sounds like a lesser prize after years of fighting against the Russian invasion. For Berlin, it's a way to keep Ukraine within the European framework without triggering an immediate legal and political crisis within the bloc. This statement shows that Ukraine is making progress but still faces major barriers. The war created by Putin pushes Kyiv toward the West, but also makes it harder for it to fully join Western institutions. Zelensky wants to show the Ukrainian people that their sacrifice leads to a safe place inside the European Union and far from the Russian shadow. Merz responds with caution, offering partial integration and a future promise. The problem is that a future promise doesn't shoot down drones, doesn't stop missiles, and doesn't rebuild distant cities. Even so, Putin's calculation keeps going wrong. The invasion was supposed to push Ukraine away from Europe. The effect was the opposite. Ukraine became more connected to the West, gained weapons, training, money, and political support. Full membership in the European Union may not happen now, but Kyiv's strategic path has already left Moscow's orbit. Putin tried to hold Ukraine by force and ended up pushing the nation away for good. The crisis in the Strait of Hormuz emerges as another sign of an unstable world on the same day that Russia tries to deal with internal attacks. Iran once again announced the closure of the route, blaming Israel for attacks in Lebanon and alleging ceasefire violations. This route is sensitive because an important part of the world's oil passes through it. This instability is of interest to regimes that thrive on geopolitical blackmail. Iran uses Hormuz as a tool of pressure. Russia has used energy as a political weapon for years, and Iran has done the same. The problem is that now Moscow also sees its own energy becoming a target. While Tehran tries to block a maritime route, Russian refineries suffer air attacks. While Putin talks about strength, his infrastructure appears vulnerable. The board that once seemed to favor hardline regimes is now starting to demand a price. The White House is trying to prevent the deal with Iran from turning into a show where Tehran buys time, threatens ships, and still plays the victim. The back and forth in the Strait shows how authoritarian regimes handle negotiations. They sign when it suits them, apply pressure when they can, and blame others when they need to hide their own maneuvers. Putin watches all of this while trying to maintain the image of an absolute leader. But the week paints a different picture. Ukraine strikes Moscow. Drones reach Siberia. Poland punishes Zelensky without abandoning Kiev. The EU slows down Ukraine's full membership, but keeps the nation on the European path. Iran stirs up trouble in the Hormuz and adds more tension to global energy. None of this shows a calm world. It shows a world in turmoil. The war has also entered a more psychological phase. Each refinery hit weakens Russia's sense of security. Each threat from Medvedev shows nervousness at the top. Each diplomatic setback against Zelensky tests the resilience of the Western alliance. And each new crisis in the Middle East puts pressure on energy, trade, and governments at the same time. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, take a look at the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.